Hello and thanks for stopping by. It's Chala and I am doing a great card today, and you can find all the materials and everything over at the Scrap and Stamp blog, and I'll link that down below. I'm going to be using this Picket Fence Peony Bouquet, and I started out by stamping some masks out, as I'll be using lots of masks, and I'm using this Avery removable full white labels for this. So like I said, I've gone ahead and got my masks already and cut them out. It's a process, but it's so worth it. I'm using Canson watercolor cold press 140 pound paper here, as I'll be doing some watercoloring, and I've got those standard A2 size for those cards. I'm using these masks to lay out where I want to stamp these images. It just helps me visually decide where I want things to go. And because this is going to be a trifold card, I needed to do a little bit of planning ahead of time. I'm using my Tim Holtz travel stamp platform here for these images, as it helps me get a good impression. And I'm actually going to be using this Versa Fine Clair Nocturne ink, which, oh my goodness, it's amazing. It's my first time using it, and I don't know why I haven't used it before. It's really great ink, and because I'm doing watercoloring, it's going to actually work perfectly. So I've got those first stamped out on the first portion of my card here. Like I said, it's going to be a trifold, so I'll be using 2 cards to create this. I've stamped those down. Now I'm laying down my masks over top of these 2 images. When you're masking, anything that you want to show in front, you're actually going to stamp first, and then apply your masks down and layer everything on top of that. So whatever is going to be the furthest in the background is what you're going to stamp last. So I'm just, like I said, laying down the masks just to kind of get an idea of where I want things to go before I stamp them. I have a piece of acetate here because I did use this stamp before, and I wanted to make sure that it wasn't going to leave any ink behind, because that really sucks when that happens. So it's just a really simple trick, just some of that packaging, acetate from the packaging there, and it really helps me to lay the images down to get an idea of where I want them to be without worrying about whether my stamp is completely clean. So once I get these images all stamped and laid down, I will go on to the other side of my card. Oh, this is my favorite part, when you lift everything up. It's like magic. So I'm laying the card pieces together here just to get an idea of where I want that that third flower to be stamped on the right hand flap of that card, just so that when I fold it together it lines up nicely. I will be fussy cutting those out. And then I go ahead, stamp that down, and just repeat really that whole masking process to get these stems and leaves in place of where I want them to go down. It's really handy if you have a craft pick like this one here to help lift up that release paper, as it can sometimes be tricky. Again, with these masks, you can keep them and use them on future projects, so I will actually attach those to the back side of my stamp packaging there so that I can use them again. So again, getting the most out of your products is always the best. So like I said, I'm just going to finish up stamping here. I like this set. It has the 3 big flowers and then these little buds that go along with it, and I just think they're just beautifully drawn. Peonies are my favorite flowers. I love in the springtime, beginning of summer there, watching the ants work away at the little tight buds to help open them up. The ants seem to be drawn to the peonies because they're very sweet and they take all that goodness back to their queen, I guess. But that's my favorite thing to watch, is how they work away at opening up those flowers. Alright, so I'm just, like I said, finishing up this right hand flap of my card, getting the leaves stamped down. The stamping and masking process, it takes a bit of practice, so definitely if you want to try it out, practice on just some scrap paper that you have, and that helps to get an idea of where you want things to lay as well, and then you get an idea of what you need to stamp first. Sometimes I'll do that if it's a complex image. I'll stamp it on scrap paper first and actually write on it what I need to stamp first, and then number them so that I don't get mixed up when I go to use my cardstock, because there's nothing worse than wasting products. So here I'm going to lay down this onto my Tim Holtz glass mat and start my watercoloring process. I've listed the Distress inks over at the Scrap and Stamp blog, so head over there to check that out. I'm going to speed this up here because it is a process to do the flowers. I'm also going to add some nice relaxing music for you to listen to while this happens, and then once we're closer to finishing up this watercoloring, I will come back and we'll have a good old chat about it. Alright guys, enjoy! Alright, so as you can see, there is a lot of layering of colors in there and drying in between and layering again and just really back and forth. But once that's done, I added a blue wash to the background as I wasn't sure where I was going to fussy cut these out. And I'm just kind of lining the cards up here to get an idea of how close I want to trim everything. And I'm going to trim conservatively on this one a bit because I don't know how close to the crease of the card I want to go. I ended up going quite close later on, but in the beginning I didn't want to overcut. So just really fussy cutting the flower out here, and the trick to fussy cutting is always to move the paper, not your scissors. So speeding up the process here, as again, fussy cutting does take a while, but it is really so worth it. So now that I've got that trimmed up, and I'll lay it together to see how well it connects and folds nicely together, and I have to trim off a little smidge off the edge of the one card, and you'll see that here in a minute. Like, it really is just the tiniest of pieces, but once I've got that trimmed, it lines up beautifully and folds nicely together. So now from here I need to adhere it down, and I need to use some strong adhesive. So I'm going to be using my Be Creative score tape here, and I don't want to adhere this down in the wrong place. So I'm only going to peel up portions of the score tape here so that I can wiggle it around a little bit to get the right fit without it sticking where I don't want it to. And then once it's in place, I can go ahead and remove the rest of that release paper, and it lays down beautifully. I like to finish this image off with a Copic liner marker here just to darken up the edges so that you don't see any of the white parts of that fussy cutting, as well as just to kind of darken the lines of that stamped image up in certain places. That's totally up to you whether or not you want to do it. I just think it makes it a little more of a finished and cleaner look for me. But again, that's completely up to you whether or not you want to do that. So once I get that all lined up, I added a sentiment from the Concord and Ninth there, just a simple sentiment for it. I added some of these Sparklets jewels, and then I actually added a little bit of a panel on the inside of the card here that matched the blue wash to show where I can write my sentiment and not have it be you know, too much seam through the front of the card. I wanted to keep everything quite simple. So that is today's card. I hope you liked my trifold card today. And again, you can see a closer image here. I did add the gel highlights to some of the images just to make it pop a little bit more. But I think this would make a great card for one of the teachers. End of year is coming up, so hopefully they'll like that. I want to thank you so much for stopping by today. If you enjoyed today's video, please go ahead and hit that like button. If you'd like to see more, I'd appreciate it if you would subscribe and follow along with all my creations. If you know any other crafty friends who you think would like this, go ahead and share that to them. Again, I appreciate all your support, comments, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day. We'll talk to you soon.